dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
Andrew back on Liberty Nation Radio. I remain Mark Angelides, continuing our conversation with Liberty Nation's economics guru, Andrew Moran. Andrew, I want to talk to you about the K-shaped economy. And for those who are not fortunate enough to know what a K-shaped economy is, much like myself circa an hour ago, could you give us the brief overview there?
Okay, so the K is everywhere. If you go to business media, if you talk to economists, they're all talking about the letter K. Now the K, so the upper wing of the K, the upper arm of the K means that the high income people are doing very well in the economy. They're contributing to the economy. They're keeping it afloat. But the bottom arm of that K are the low and middle income people who are not doing as well. They're not spending. They're not earning more. They're struggling to stay afloat. So that is the K shape that a lot of economists, market watchers, and I guess inevitably the policymakers are going to be discussing in the next couple of months. So heading in 2026, the midterms.
Sure. So we see this. It's a tale of two trajectories, right? There's one
tale of two cities.
I know where I was getting it from. It was my quote. So you've got these two trajectories, and I wonder if there's any possible way that these reconverge, bar an economic collapse.
No, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, there are many things that the current administration is doing to support, the working class. So one data point that came out this past summer was blue collar wage growth. So the first 9 months or 8 months of the administration, blue collar growth was the strongest it's ever been since the Nixon administration. So that's one advantage to them. The other advantage are lower interest rates. If borrowing costs are lower for low and middle income people, whether it's credit cards, mortgages, auto loans, that's going to prop them up as well. But whether they reconverge or not, I mean, I think what you just said is probably accurate. You probably have to have a reset of economic conditions. Jerome Powell, he was asked about this during the latest press conference in October, and they're saying, are you worried about this K-shape that's forming across the economy and the marketplace? And his argument was that, well, not really, because a lot of the spending that's going on, particularly in the high income demographic, is fueled by stock market gains. And as you know, the stock market, despite that springtime volatility caused by tariffs, stocks are at record highs.
Yeah.
So people are making a lot of money on those stocks, and that's supporting, whether it's 401ks, individual stocks, ETFs, that's supporting a lot of consumption that's going on.
So I think what you're saying, that the ideal economic situation now, after these divergent courses being plotted, would be that the upper arm continues on an upwards trajectory, but that the lower arm reverses its course, and then it's almost like they're running parallel lines directly upwards, if that makes sense. And I guess it's the idea that in a free market economy, everybody gets richer just at different rates. And in a more socialist economy, everybody gets poorer at a fairly rapid rate. So what can the administration do to create that lower arm to reverse its course and start running parallel with the upper?
I mean, in the near term, probably not much. I mean, you see that, for example, there was the preliminary November University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment Index, and it showed
came out on Friday. Yes, of course. I didn't. No, I didn't.
It showed a divergence in expectations of the economy and current sentiment of the economy, and it showed once again that gap with people making more than 75,000. They are more optimistic about the economy than people earning less than $75,000. But even in the stock market, you're not talking to us off air. You see the Magnificent Seven companies. This is Nvidia, this is Tesla, Amazon. Their earnings expectations have been revised upward continually over the past 12 months. But if you look at the rest of the stock market, they call it the S&P 493. Their earnings expectations have been revised lower. So in every part of the economy, you're seeing these warning signs of that gap. Companies are, what's funny too is that companies are responding to this as well. So for example, McDonald's, the CEO was on CNBC I think it was last month, and he said the reason why they expanded their value menu was because they noticed that lower income people were visiting their shops. Now, to be honest, I don't know how low income people can visit McDonald's these days, considering the prices of everything. But that was the company's justification for its increase in the number of value menu options.
So what are people?
Or sorry, one more thing too. Sorry, Cox Automotive. It's an automotive platform and has the Kelly Blue Book, and that looks at automobile prices. And it said that the average price for a car crossed $50,000 for the first time ever. And one of the analysts said that the people who are buying the cars today are people in the upper income range. And when you look at all these numbers, it ties into everything you and I were discussing in the previous segments, like the Danny voters. It's young people who are not in that income trajectory right now. They get frustrated, and they're the ones who can't buy these homes or these cars, or even visit the McDonald's to get that new vegan burger they have.
I'm going to pretend I didn't hear that, Andrew. So what are people actually spending their income on, the ones on the lower arm? That they have some income, and is it staples, it's food, it's rent, and insurance, presumably, right?
Yes, absolutely. Utilities, but all these things, all these basics, they've just risen in price dramatically, and it's hard for them to keep up. And you cannot blame them for having such a negative view of the economy, despite some broader numbers suggesting that the U.S. economy is doing well and it is staying afloat.
I'm wondering if part of the solution is really just time, because people stay in a job and they presumably work their way up, and then as people get older, their income goes up. That's always been the big lie about the 1%ers, right?
But the problem, please,
because a lot of people do make it into the 1% at some point in their careers. It's just that maybe they do it once they finally get that senior manager position in their 50s, and that's when they're financially stable. Whereas you've got a bunch of 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds, 24-year-olds thinking, well, I'm not financially stable. And the reality is, well, of course you're not. You're 24 years old. Why would you be?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, for a lot of left-leaning economists, they tend to think that income is static. So if you're making $100,000 a year, you will continually make that at the expense of everybody else. But if you really study the data over the years, you see a constant fluctuation of what everyone's making. One year I may make $30,000. The next year I may make $85,000 a year. But at the same time, I mean, again, it's always the two-handed economists, because if you look at, say, a private payroll processor, ADP, its national employment report, it showed that for people, the wage growth for job stayers is now the exact same as is for people who are job changers. And for a long time, you saw, especially in the aftermath of the pandemic, people who are changing jobs are earning a lot more than someone who stayed in the exact same position. I think the annual pay growth that ADP estimated was something like 4% year over year.
I'll leave us with the last words. I think it was the Count of Monte Cristo, and wait and hope. Andrew Moran, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And that's just about all we have time for in this week's edition of Liberty Nation Radio, heard coast to coast on the Radio America Network. I'd like to thank our guest today, Liberty Nation's economics editor, Mr. Andrew Moran, for taking the time to join us in this in-depth and fascinating conversation. And of course, thank you, the listeners at home. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we do appreciate you tuning in each and every week. You are appreciated. Please remember, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement.
We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.